Hello and welcome. My name is Greg Klein with Hayes Financial Group. I am happy to be back with you to bring you this content on foundational retirement savings. You have my contact information on this first slide. You'll also get it at the end of the presentation. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have more questions or want to have a deeper conversation about your retirement savings plan. And so let's get into it and take a look at the agenda for the presentation. We will walk you through those foundational questions that we're all faced with when we're looking at saving for retirement. We'll see how your employer plan offers tons of advantages for you to build those retirement savings faster and easier. We'll take a look at how it impacts you directly saving in your employer-sponsored retirement plan, how it impacts your take-home pay and your paycheck. The third point is we'll talk about how much you should consider contributing to your plan, and then finally look at where to invest that money. The reason we wanted to bring you this presentation on foundational retirement savings is because a major cause of procrastination and doing nothing and not saving for retirement is this idea of choice overload. Because when we're set to first enroll in our retirement plan and begin our retirement savings journey, there's a lot of questions that we have to answer, like, should I enroll? How should I save pre-tax versus Roth? Before you really even get to the point of how should I invest my money. And so you very quickly approach that choice overload. And so with this presentation, we want to calm your fears, give you information to help you make these decisions confidently, and also help you understand that you have resources available to you like Hayes Financial Group to help you. So don't ever think that you're alone in making these decisions. Honestly, planning for retirement can be overwhelming. We just saw that with all the questions that we face and all these decisions that we have to take. Furthermore, we have to navigate various factors, some of which we have no control over, others that we have total control over. So we want to look at that first, these challenges in retirement planning over which we have no control, like take future tax policy, some of these laws, legislation, market returns. Depending on when you listen to this presentation, we just got through a very difficult year in the stock market. Well, I should say difficult on the nerves. It ended up being a positive year, but 2020 was kind of a wild ride and shows you that you have no control over those market returns that you see when you're investing in the stock market and your retirement. So no control over those factors, limited control over things like longevity, how we take care of ourselves, how long we might be alive and retired, our employment situation and the earnings we make, we will have some bit of control over those factors. What we have total control over is going to be the things that we'll talk about in this presentation, like your asset allocation, how you invest your money, the decisions that you make with spending versus savings. So we want to focus on those factors that we have control over, and that's what we'll emphasize in this session with you. We will start by detailing why your employer-sponsored plan is your easiest and best option for taking the reins and steering your retirement toward success. There are lots of benefits in saving in your workplace retirement plan. One of the greatest benefits is the first one that I have listed, and I will circle back to this a few times in this session, but simplicity is one of the greatest benefits in saving through your employer plan. We saw already that there's a lot of decisions that you have to make, a lot of factors involved in your retirement savings journey. Some we have control over, others we don't. And so the easier it is, the more control or power you're going to feel over your retirement situation. And if it's easy, a simple choice, you're not going to have that fear of doing the wrong thing and suffer from procrastination or inertia. And your employer plan is super simple. The money comes right out of your paycheck. If you're like me, that's a good thing, because if you don't see it in your take-home pay, then you can't spend it. And you have control over how much you save from each paycheck. It's easy to change, but it's super simple. Cost is another important advantage to your employer plan. When you save in your employer plan, you're essentially getting a bulk discount. It's kind of like going to Costco or going to a wholesaler, because when you invest in your and save in your employer plan, you and your coworkers are pooling your money together. So you're investing together, you're putting likely millions of dollars into these investments versus, let's say, you as an individual, if you were just to go take your money on your own, you might only be investing a few $100s. So if you're investing millions of dollars as a company altogether, you're getting a better deal. And so for this reason, you get that bulk discount and you get the investments in your plan at a lower cost than what a typical individual retail investor would get those same funds for on his or her own out in the marketplace. So cost is a big benefit. All the different options that you have available through your employer plan, they're vast, they're super high quality. This is part of what Hayes Financial Group helps your employer do, is monitor these investments to make sure that you have an all-star team of investments available to you in your plan. Plus, there are no minimums. Some of these investments that you have available through your employer plan, if you wanted to get into them again as an individual on your own, just to get one single investment, you may have to start with a deposit of $10,000, or there's some where the minimum is $250,000, $250,000 just to get into that fund. But in your employer plan, there are no minimums. So right away with your very first deposit, even if it's 5, $10, just a few dollars, you can spread that money around and diversify across many different investment options. And as I mentioned, very high quality investment options available to you. Last but certainly not least is the magic of the employer-sponsored retirement plan that offers any level of matching contribution. Any advisor worth his or her salt is going to tell you that the first step that you take in your saving strategy has to be to take full advantage of any match that your employer is offering. That's because nowhere else are you going to get this extra help that your employer is offering in your workplace plan. You have a lot of different uh, options, I should say, vehicles where you can save for retirement. You can just put money under your mattress if you want. You can put it into a bank in a savings account, a more traditional method. But if you put money in the bank or you put it under your mattress, nobody's going to be slipping a few extra dollars in there for you. It's just going to be your money going into that account or wherever you put it. When you save in your employer plan, if they offer a match, you're getting extra help from your employer. You save money and they put money on top of that, so that builds your savings even faster. So I said I'd circle back to the simplicity, and I think that's because the simplicity, having that money come right out of your paycheck, you don't have to think about it much. You have a lot of easy options to choose from as far as the investments that we'll look at. That's so important, and I put it first because if it's not easy and you don't take advantage of it, the rest really doesn't matter. If you're not taking advantage of your plan, you're not going to benefit from the cost savings, all the different options, the match. So it's got to be simple. And if we can help with that in any fashion, please reach out to us at Hayes Financial Group and we will do so. Making changes now rather than later is key to successful retirement savings. That's because of the compounding that takes place with your money over time. It's also referred to as the snowball effect, and it's this idea of the longer that you save and invest, it's like rolling that snowball on the ground. The more snow it picks up and it gets bigger and bigger, the more interest and growth that you see in your retirement account. Like I said, it's like the more snow that it picks up. And so if you don't start now and start rolling that snowball early and give it time to grow and grow and grow, it's going to be very hard, if not impossible, to make up for that lost time. So we need to make retirement savings a priority, invest early and often, which again is why your employer plan is so great, because it's simple and so you can do that, so you don't procrastinate. Some of the plans that the plan that you're involved with might have automatic enrollment where they give you that push and kind of nudge you into the plan already, which is a fantastic feature. If you're more of a numbers person, here's a graph that illustrates the saving and investing behavior of 4 different people, looking at them saving the same amount, but over different durations, different strategies with the investments. So we'll work our way down from the top. You'll see consistent Chloe up at the top is the winner for saving consistently over time, putting that money in all the time, never stopping, and you see how much money she ends up with compared to, let's say, second place, which is late Lila, who saved the same amount year over year, but didn't get started until 10 years later. So the difference between starting at 25 versus 35, you can see Chloe has almost twice as much as Lila because she got started 10 years earlier. So time is a huge factor in your ability to achieve your retirement savings goals. And then third is Quitter Quincy. You can see Quincy does almost as well as Lila because Quincy starts at 25, only saves till 35 and then stops. But it shows that compounding, that snowball effect. Because Quincy got in early and started rolling that snowball, even though he stopped saving after just 10 years, ended up with almost as much money as Lila, who saved for 30 years, but got in later. And then lastly, Nervous Noah is saving the whole time, but doesn't put any money in the stock market, goes with the lowest risk type of investment that's just an interest bearing, low risk cash type of investment. And you can see he actually ends up last, even though he saves all the time, saves the same amount, but doesn't get into an appropriate investment and is going to fall short of his retirement goal. So the lesson here is to not delay. Take advantage of the easy options available to you, like your employer sponsored plan, and even more so if there's any sort of matching contribution that's being offered to you. All right, hopefully by now you're understanding how vital it is to be saving in your employer-sponsored plan, saving for your retirement now, and taking advantage of the easy options that you have available to you through your employer. You may see it as a good thing that you want to be doing, but you might still be asking yourself, okay, well, if I do this, though, how is it going to impact my take-home pay? I'm on a really tight budget, so how's this going to impact my bottom line? And that's what we'll look at next. And of course, you want to know, what kind of effects saving in your retirement plan will have on your take-home pay. The good news is you likely have options through your plan where you can do it in a way where it doesn't hit your take-home pay as much, takes a little sting out of the saving for retirement, and we will see that in just a moment. But let's first look at the paycheck of our non-saver, procrastinator, somebody that is not in the plan, making $1,500 gross. They're not putting anything into their plan, so they're taxed on their full $1,500 paycheck, what their taxes might be, their net pay, and of course they're not getting any match, even if their employer offers it, because if you're not saving anything in the plan, you're not going to get any match. Now, everybody will have this option, a pre-tax option available to them, or what I refer to as tax me later. So if somebody gets into their employer-sponsored plan in this fashion, they'd have the same gross pay, $1,500. They're going to start saving maybe 5%, that'd be 75 bucks that they put away for their retirement. But I call this a tax me later option because if you save pre-tax or traditional or just, regular 401k, 403b is how they'll refer to it, you're not taxed on those dollars now. They're taxed me later. So the $75 is not taxed now. So this person is going to be taxed on $1,425, not their full $1,500 of gross pay. So you see they pay a little bit less in taxes, their net pay, and then they might even get some match on top of that from their employer. So we see here it takes some of the sting out of saving for retirement because they're putting away $75, yet their paycheck went down by $61 compared to when they weren't saving. So they don't feel the full impact of those savings because they're saving it pre-tax, or what I call tax me later. Many plans out there will also have a Roth option, or what I call tax me now. So if somebody decides to save the same 5% in a Roth, that would be the same $75, but they're not getting any tax break up front. This is tax me now, so you're still paying taxes on your full $1,500 gross paycheck. The taxes then would be the same as if you weren't saving, the same as before. You probably get some match on top of that. If you do, the match is not going to be in a Roth source or a Roth bucket that we'll see in just a moment, just to keep that in mind. But you're saving $75 and the paycheck went down by $75 compared to when this person was not saving. So you have options. Roth is, that's fine, I'll save now, I'll pay my taxes now so that when I take this money out at retirement, after age 59 and a half, I don't have to pay any taxes then. Tax me now, not later, where every plan will have something like a pre-tax or a tax me later option, which is going to be a useful way to save if you have a hard time saving at all, because like I said, it takes some of the sting out of saving. It doesn't hit your take-home pay or your bottom line, quite as much as it would like saving via the Roth. Another way to look at this idea of the tax me now versus tax me later and how much it will impact your take home pay today is thinking of your financial journey as like this image. It's a toll road. If you do that pre-tax variety, or if that's all that's available in your plan, that's fine. That means you're driving on a freeway right now. So you see this car cruising free. When you get to retirement and begin to withdraw your money, then that's going to be when you're taxed on each withdrawal, or the amount that you withdraw each year, like paying those tolls. So you're in a freeway now. When you get to retirement and start to withdraw it, then it's the tolls or the taxes that you pay on each withdrawal. Where the Roth is like driving on a toll road now, you're not getting any tax break now, because remember, the Roth is tax me now. So you're paying those taxes or those tolls each time with each deposit, so that you can cruise free when you get to retirement and don't have to pay any taxes on the Roth deposits or any of the interest or growth that you've seen on that money. If you want to see more detail on pre-tax versus Roth, we have a recorded presentation on that on our website, hayesfinancialgroup.com, in the resources section. Check that out. All right, whether you say pre-tax, Roth, a combination, you have employer match in your account, understand that everything is going to go into one single account. If you've always been saving pre-tax and you want to incorporate some Roth deposits, don't think like you're going to be opening a totally separate account. It's all one account. So how I explain it is with this depiction of the umbrella. Think of your retirement account as an umbrella. It's protecting your money from taxes and from creditors and things like that. So it's protecting your money. But underneath that umbrella, you might have some different buckets like Roth, pre-tax, there might be match from your employer. You may have something like profit sharing. You might have catch-up contributions if you're 50 or older. So there's a lot of different sources of monies or buckets in your account. So think of it as one account, a lot of different buckets that you might be filling up. You might put some into that Roth bucket. You might put some into the pre-tax bucket. Remember, those are taxed differently. Roth is tax me now. Pre-tax is tax me later. If you get any match in a match bucket from your employer, that's the tax me later variety. So you're not able to pay taxes up front on any employer match. That's always going to be taxed later on when you take that money out, preferably at retirement. Now, this again is something that you control. So you control, if you participate in the plan, you control how much you want to save, how much you put into each of those different buckets that you have control over. Hopefully you're taking full advantage of the match and getting the most that the employer is offering in that match bucket. But how much you deposit into these different buckets, that's up to you. You have control over that. And so, once you're in the plan, taking advantage of the benefits that are available through your employer plan, understanding how it's going to impact your paycheck and how you're choosing to pay taxes on the deposits that you make, how much your employer matches, then we might need to start thinking about how much we should be putting into those different buckets to make sure that we're taking full advantage of our plan. And that's the next thing that we'll look at. And how much you should be contributing, it's a pretty personal question because it depends on a lot of different factors. We'll take a look at those first. But what I tell people is the short answer is you should probably be saving more. Pretty much all of us can be saving more, should be saving more. I always say that I've never in my career of 12, 13 years now in the retirement plan industry in total, I've never met someone that's approaching retirement or in retirement that said, gosh, I really wish I had not saved as much money. Everybody wishes they had saved more, so chances are you can and should probably be saving more for your retirement. With that said, some of the factors that will influence how much you save are first your income, because of course what you earn today and your current lifestyle, that's going to influence your retirement needs. Or if you are in a very tight budget, you find it hard to save anything, how much you make and your income is going to influence how much you can put into your retirement plan. Maybe just starting with the minimum 1%, that's a big step for you, and that's an important first goal. So do that, and then later we can work at increasing that savings amount and getting you on track. Also, your plans in retirement, that's going to heavily influence how much you should be saving. So these are those things that are very personal to every individual. And what do you plan? Do you plan to retire early? Do you plan on not retiring and just continuing to work as long as you can? A more extravagant retirement, checking off every item on your bucket list, more of an average retirement, which is going to be living on something like 75 to 80% of what you lived on before you retired. So, if your plans are nothing more than playing with your grandkids, going for a nature walk here and there, spending a lot of time is watching Netflix, you probably don't need to save quite as much as somebody that's going to be, uh, traveling the globe and doing everything that they had ever wanted to do when they didn't have the free time to do it. So it all depends on your plans as well as your income. And then of course your match is going to be a huge factor because you don't want to pass up any of that extra help. You need to be saving enough to get the match. So how much you make, what your plans are, how much the match is in your employer plan are all going to be factors that influence really how much you should be saving. Regardless though of your current situation and your future plans, getting the most out of the match has got to be your number one goal. Oftentimes, to get the most out of the match, you need to be saving somewhere around 5 or 6%. It depends on every plan, so make sure you know how that works and check on your plan, but it's probably somewhere around 5 or 6%. To really be on track to achieving your retirement savings goals, you're probably going to need to be saving a total of 10, 12, 15% of your income. So the match will help get to that higher number, but total, you're going to probably need, I can almost say, almost certainly need 10% of your income going towards your retirement. And for many people, it's going to be 15% and even more depending on how early you started saving for retirement. Whether you are good, just saving what you're saving to get the full employer match that's being offered to you, or if you really need to crank it up and be saving more, it's good to have some checkpoints and see if you're on track, or see if you're behind and need to save a whole lot more. Achieving a financially successful retirement, as we've seen, it requires discipline, consistent savings, and having some sort of plan, even doing just a few minutes of retirement planning to calculate and see, are you on track? Are you way behind? So oftentimes people wait until far too late. They wait until their late 50s, until they're 60, and then they start to plan and try to figure out if they made it to their goal or not. That's far too late. So let's look at this chart. These are some checkpoints where you can see whether or not you're on track based on your age and different income levels. And what it's telling you is a multiple of your income, how much you should have saved at that point. So go all the way to retirement, what we're looking towards, that light at the end of the tunnel. You'll see that row of 65. For most people, it's going to be in that range of 6, 7, 8 times your annual income is what you're going to want to have as a nest egg to provide for your retirement of 25, 30 years. Now you want to do these checkpoints along the way. You don't want to wait until you're 65 to check in and see, okay, how am I doing? You'd want to do something more like, let's say you're 40, you make $50,000 a year. Where should I be? Well, 40-year-old that makes $50,000 a year should really have almost 2 times their annual income, let's say about $95,000, in order to be on track and keep saving what they're saving, and putting in that roughly 5% to get their employer match and be on track to achieve their retirement savings goals. So this is ideal. These numbers are ideally what you want to have. I understand that not every situation is ideal, so let's look at some reality on the next slide. In reality, many of us are confronting a situation where we're behind. And these numbers, they show the average and then the median. These are balances for Vanguard, so a big retirement plan provider, all their employees, or I shouldn't say their employees, their participants, all the employees that have a Vanguard account that save through them. And we just looked at the 40-year-old that should have something like 95,000 saved for retirement. Look at this situation, you'll see the average account for someone that's roughly in that 40-year-old category around 70,000, and then the median is more like 26,000. So median is smack dab in the middle. That means there's half of the people have less than $26,000 saved for retirement. And I want to encourage you. So I want to use these numbers to drive home the point that don't beat yourself up. If you saw in the previous slide that, man, I'm behind, I don't have multiples of my annual income saved for retirement, don't get discouraged. We want to help you. So think about saving now, right now, especially if you have an employer match in your plan, take care of that. And then, get on that trajectory to saving more and more over time. And, um, you'll quickly find yourself on track. I mean, look at some of these average numbers for 65-year-olds. You go to those people that are on the verge of retiring, and the average account balance is not in that range of 6, 7, or 8 times their annual income, probably. So, a lot of us are in a situation where we could be doing better. We want to help you do better. So it's important that you're listening to this information. That means that you're taking the initiative. So don't just stop there. Make the change. Save a little bit more like you probably should. Then once you're in the plan and you're saving, you understand that you need to be saving a little bit more. You've taken those steps. Then the last question that we want to answer is, how should you invest appropriately based on your risk tolerance, your time horizon? And so let's take a look at that. Let's explore some different ways that you have for how you choose to invest your contributions in your employer-sponsored plan. The good news is that you have options where it's pretty easy. These do-it-for-me options. Depending on your plan, you'll have something like a risk-based portfolio that's like a low, medium, high risk, or conservative, moderate, aggressive type of thing. Or you might have a target date fund where it's targeted to the date that you're looking to retire. Both of these options are done for you, where it's pretty simple. You make the one choice, you decide what risk level you want or when you're planning on retiring, and then the diversification or the asset allocation is really done for you. Now, in every retirement plan, you're going to have a curated list of options, a menu of different investments, and that's part of what Hayes Financial Group does with your employers to help maintain those options and make sure you have the best options available to you in your plan. So you can always do it yourself and pick from that list of options. But the vast majority of people will probably go with something like a do-it-for-me option. That's likely the default investment in your employer plan. If you don't make a choice, that's probably where your money is going to go. But it's a nice direction that the retirement plan industry is moving in to make this as easy as possible for you. The industry is a little slow to react, but finally figuring out that people need help. People are the average saver in a retirement plan isn't an investment guru. They need some help. So you have these do-it-for-me options that make it super simple. But no matter which way you go, choosing an investment, if you do it yourself, you have it done for you, investing always comes with a certain level of risk. And that risk that we often think about, there's lots of different types of risk. I mean, there's when you're investing internationally, there's currency risk. There's the risk that you're not going to make enough to get to your retirement goal. But what most of us think about is this idea of market risk. What's the risk that we're going to lose money, or the volatility that we see in the stock market, because it's the risk that's most evident that we see on the nightly news. And so to mitigate this risk, that's what the things like the do-it-for-me options, they do that by spreading your money out in different types of investments. If you're a self-directed investor, you're doing it on your own, then you need to do this on your own by practicing asset allocation or spreading your money out into different types of investments, low, medium, high risk, US and international, and everything else. That helps mitigate the risk, and we'll see how that works with some figures in just a moment. Asset allocation, that's that simple but powerful concept about diversifying your money into these different asset classes. So low, medium, high risk, things like cash, bonds, and stocks. And by spreading your money out, you don't have all your eggs in one basket. So you can decrease your risk, decrease that market risk or that volatility, the up and down movement that you see in your account, and you can actually improve your returns. So it's a very simple but powerful concept. Again, if you're going with the do it for me options, that's done for you. So you don't even have to pay attention to this portion of the presentation. But if you have the desire to self-direct or you're that type of investor, you definitely want to be practicing this with your investments in your account. So practicing asset allocation, spread your money out into different types of investments. These different types of investments are things like cash. That's going to be your lowest risk type of investment. And it's not necessarily risk free because I say there's still that risk that, and we saw that a few moments ago with Nervous Noah. You remember Nervous Noah was investing consistently over time, but still didn't make it to his retirement savings goal because he was in a very low risk investment and didn't make the gains that he needed to get to his retirement savings goal. So there's still risk associated with this, and the risk is that you're not going to make the returns that you need. But there are going to be things like money market funds, stable value, or guaranteed type of investments. That's going to be low. Middle of the road is going to be like your bond type of investment. On that risk spectrum, bond's going to be kind of middle of the road. The how I describe a bond is a lot of people got savings bonds when they were kids. They might remember that. It's just basically an IOU. So you're giving your money to the government or a corporation. In exchange, they give you an IOU. They say, okay, thank you for you're acting as a lender. You're lending the government money, and they say thank you. We'll pay you interest over the period of time, whatever it is, 5, 10, 20 years. And at the end of that period of time, the bond matures and you get your money back. So there's that promise at the end that you're going to get your money back. And in the meantime, you're going to get interest on that IOU. At the end of the bond period, it matures. You cash in that IOU and get your money back. So that's why it's more middle of the road. There's still risk because they're affected by interest rates and the market, but not like stocks. We all understand how the stock market moves up and down, that you're buying a little piece of a company when you invest in a stock. The good news is that in your employer sponsored plan, you're not investing in individual stocks. Any type of stock investment that you're going to have available in your plan is going to diversify across a bunch of different companies, dozens or maybe hundreds of different companies in one single investment. But they are going to be, they have the most market risk or that most volatility associated with them, but offer you the most in terms of historical growth. So we want to grow our money to get to our retirement savings goals. That's probably going to be an important part of everyone's portfolio. So on the risk return spectrum, we see cash, lowest risk, lowest possible return, bonds, middle of the road, and then stocks, highest risk, but highest potential for growth. And asset allocation, spreading your money out, diversifying across these different types of asset classes, low, medium, high risk, cash, bond, stocks. It can mitigate that risk, help with that volatility, and can potentially increase your returns. So this chart shows us about 30 years of data. How you see is so top to bottom is your returns, left to right is the volatility or that market risk that we're talking about. So lowest return was the bond portfolio. You see 100% bonds is lowest down on the bottom. But to the left of that, with less volatility or less up and down movement risk, you see those portfolios that incorporate some stocks into the portfolio. So they actually had less movement, but better returns. Because when all your eggs are in one basket, then you're subject to a little bit more risk. You see that on the opposite end of the spectrum. Go all the way to the right, look at that 100% stock portfolio. You see, yes, it did have the highest return, but it had by far the most volatility risk associated with it, having more of an 80-20 split, incorporating some of those lower risk types of investments. You see the return didn't go down much. It's not, that dot is not a whole lot lower than the 100% stock portfolio, but the volatility risk is quite a bit farther left. So asset allocation is super important. It's done for you in the easy to use options that are available in your plan. If you invest on your own as a self-directed investor, you got to be doing that. You got to practice that. Then your risk tolerance and your time horizon are going to determine how you allocate, how much to the low risk, how much to the higher risk stuff. And these are just rules of thumb, but typically, if you're 15 or more years away from retirement, and we'll see that in just a moment on the next slide, but you can take additional risk to get more growth because you have longer to make up for any bumps in the road. When you start to get within like the single digits, maybe you're 5 to 15 years, you got to start, and those do it for me options will make that change for you. But if you're a self-directed investor, you got to start to transition over and maybe take a little bit of risk off the table. And then when you're within a handful of years, one market cycle, maybe 5 or fewer years, you certainly have to keep an eye on that. So time horizon is definitely going to factor in. And time horizon will determine your ability to ride out those dips in the market. So look at what we see right here, those 1-year returns over a long period of time, over decades, roughly 70 years. You see there's some really good years in the blue in the stock market, but there's also been some pretty bad years. Bonds, not so much, and then a 50-50 portfolio splitting it half stocks, half bonds. But then if we start to expand that time horizon, so we see maybe a 5-year period, 10 years, and even into 20 years, that range tightens. So we're not going to be caught in a situation where we're 1 year out from retirement with a lot of money that we're going to need in 1 year in the stock market. Because you see those 1-year returns in the stock market, it can be good, but it can be really bad. So that's why as your time horizon gets shorter, we want to incorporate those lower risk types of investments and not have everything exposed to the stock market. And you can see by doing that, then it's going to tighten the range of returns and have the intended purpose of mitigating your risk, but still giving the growth that you need to achieve your retirement savings goals and then make your money last throughout your entire retirement. So understanding your time horizon and having enough time to ride out those dips in the market is going to make it so that you're less likely to experience those losses right as you're upon the point where you're going to need that money in retirement. So whether you have a strong appetite for risk, or you're conservative, moderate, aggressive, you going with one of the do it for me options, or if you are the do it yourself type of investor, mix it up with asset allocation. Those portfolios or target date funds in your plan, they'll do that for you. So that asset allocation is being done for you. If you're self-directed, make sure that you're doing that on your own. Understand your risk level, understand your time horizon, and do that on your own. Because you've done all this work to get into your plan and make sure that you're saving an appropriate amount. Then make sure you're also in an appropriate investment and reach out for help if you need additional help with that. We have seen that your employer-sponsored retirement plan can be one of the best ways to help you prepare for your retirement starting today. Taking important steps to save for your future are key. Your employer plan is very easy, offers you cost benefits, great investments, potentially a match. You might have different ways to treat your dollars in terms of taxes, both pre-tax and Roth, easy to use investment options if you're not an experienced investor, but if you are, you have options to diversify and allocate your assets on your own. So lots of reasons to take advantage of your super important benefit that your employer offers to you. Don't procrastinate any longer. Start saving or increase your savings now to make sure you achieve your goals. And if you'd like additional assistance, don't hesitate to reach out. Again, my name is Greg Klein. My phone number, email address is on the site or on the page. Our website is listed there. We have other resources available at our website and our scheduling link at Calendly. Feel free to reach out and schedule time to speak with us one-on-one there. There's no cost for doing that, so don't hesitate to use that. And we appreciate your time. Take care, and we'll speak to you in future webinars.